My dear colleague teacher, welcome to our online interaction. I'm your fellow teacher, and today I want us to interact a bit on the competency-based assessment tools. Now, you'll agree with me that assessment is an important exercise in the learning activity. And with the competency-based curriculum, they are the recommended assessment tools. And this is what I want us to look at together as we interact more and more. And as we start off, we need to ask ourselves, what's an assessment tool? Then we also need to know what are some of the assessment tools that are used in CBA. That's competency-based assessment. Now, as you can see on your screen, an assessment tool is an instrument that may be used by a teacher or an instructor to determine the extent to which a learner has achieved a specified learning outcome. And the teacher may be guided by the following when choosing an assessment tool to use. The first is the knowledge and skills evidence that the learner is expected to demonstrate. The second thing that will guide the teacher on choosing the assessment tool to use is the performance criteria and the expected evidence. Last but not least, the third guiding principle is the assessment conditions. Now, why assessment tools? The competence-based assessment tools are instruments that are used, one, to inform improvements on instruction strategies. They also offer relevant and appropriate interventions. They determine the level of acquired competences. They do provide feedback to the learner and also to other stakeholders. They help us to collect information on acquisition of competencies by a learner. Now, CBA requires the use of a variety of assessment tools to address different learning styles of the learners. So as a teacher, you are not just supposed to use one assessment tool. You are supposed to use a variety. You're supposed to use a variety of the assessment tools. Reason being, when you're teaching a classroom, you'll have different types of learners who learn different learning styles. So the learning style of learner A is different from the learning style of learner B. And that's why you're supposed to blend the use of several assessment tools so as to address the different learning styles of the learners. And on your screen, I'm displaying a list of the assessment tools recommended by the Kenya National Examinations Council, with questionnaires, observation schedules, written tests, learners' profile, rating scales, oral and oral questioning, anecdotal records, journals, projects, rubrics, portfolios, checklists, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look at each of these assessment tools one at a time. Let's start with the observation schedule. The observation schedule outlines the characteristics and behavior that a learner shows during the performance of a specific task. The teacher records observations made on the behavior of the learner on the spot as it's outlined in the rubrics. And on your screen, I'm displaying an example of the observation schedule. So you can see On top there, with the information about the school, the student's name, the teacher's name, the date of assessment, the learning area, the strand, the sub-strand, the competency that's being assessed, the task, and then with the indicators of the competency, that's knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that are being assessed. And then the teacher is going to record the observations. Thereafter, we shall have the students signing and also the teacher's signature included this. And there's an example, a sample. You can see the details there. What I'm interested in is which was the strand is textiles and clothing. And we are looking at sewing machine. So the tasks is that individually, learners are to prepare a sewing machine for straight stitching. So the criteria is written there. They are supposed to carry out the upper and lower threading, winding, the bobbing, and threading the bobbing case, fixing the needle, testing the stitches and machine tension, powering on in case of the electric sewing machine. So, and the observation are there. And then look at the teacher's comment that the learner was able to carry out most of the checks on the sewing machine. However, testing the stitches and setting the machine tension posed a challenge. You see now, with the teacher's comment that the learner had a challenge with the testing the stitches and setting the machine. This will call up for follow-up activities. So that's the first assessment tool, which is the observation schedule. So you, as the teacher, in your course of teaching, as you prepare your lessons, you will see where you can best use the observation schedule. With your permission, let's move to the second assessment tool, which is the observation checklist. Now, checklists are used for identifying whether key tasks in a procedure, a process, or an activity have been completed. A teacher carefully observes and ticks whatever behavior is portrayed, guided by the criterion that had been set. It's used to assess performance or products, both formally and informally. It offers a yes or no, true or false format in relation to a learner demonstrating a specific criterion. It contains a list of characteristics of a learner's expected behavior. It's used to gauge skills development or progress. It requires the teacher's careful observation of the competencies. The teacher marks or the teacher ticks against the competencies that have been portrayed. The observed competency can be recorded as observed before or at the time of ticking. And there are some of the characteristics of a good checklist. A checklist is not just a checklist. It should have a criteria for success based on expected outcomes. It should be short enough to be practical. Like on one sheet of paper, you can't have, let's say, 5 pages and you're talking of it being a checklist. Because remember, you'll be observing as you're taking. So if it's so many sheets of paper, it might pose a challenge. It should have tasks chunked into logical sections from the start to the end. It should highlight critical tasks only. It should be written with clear and detailed wording to minimize the risk of misinterpretation. On your screen, you can see a sample of what we've been talking about, a checklist. So administrative information, the learning area is integrated science, the strand is force and energy, and the substrand is electrical energy. The learning activity is setting up simple electrical circuits in series and parallel and classify materials as conductors and non-conductors of electricity. And then there's a sample. You see, the teacher will have this. On the left, we'll have the names of the learners, then the competencies that are being assessed. For instance, you can see, can set up simple electric circuit consisting of 3 dry cells, 4 bulbs, ammeters, and voltmeters in series. So it's either yes or no. So the teacher will be walking around and will be ticking appropriately, either yes or no. He goes to the second one, the second learner. Then maybe it's a no, maybe it's a yes. The third assessment tool is the rating scale. A rating scale is a tool that is used for assessing the performance of tasks, skill levels, procedures, processes, quantities, or end products such as reports, drawings, and computer programs, and so on and so forth. These are just at a defined level within a stated range. I'm giving you an example there. The pain rating scale, either no pain, mild pain, moderate pain, severe pain, very severe pain, or worse pain that is unimaginable. Just like a checklist, the rating scale can be used to assess performance or products, both formally and informally. The teacher states the criteria and provides 3 or 4 response selections to describe the quality or frequency of learners' work. The teacher then indicates the degree of frequency of occurrence of competencies displayed by the learner. Each scale is an incremental level of measurement, meaning each scale fulfills the function of the previous scale. With descriptive words for the rating scales, like always, usually, sometimes, excellent, good, fair, outstanding, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and so on and so forth. Then with the meaning of some descriptive words that are used in the rating, what's the meaning of outstanding, satisfactory, unsatisfactory? But I want you to take note on the sample rating scale. So if administrative information, the strand, the learning area, is integrated science. Allow me to take a sip of water. Thank you. So the learning area is integrated science, and the strand is force and energy. The substrand is electrical energy. So which is the learning activity? Setting up simple electrical circuits in series and parallel, and classifying materials as conductors or non-conductors of electricity. Now, here is a sample rating scale. So on your left, with the competency, that's the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values being assessed. And then with the rating scale, always, usually, sometimes. So the teacher is going to rate based on the observation of what is taking place. Then we continue to a questionnaire, which is the fourth assessment tool. A questionnaire is a specific set of written questions which aims to extract specific information from the chosen respondents. The questions and answers are designed in order to gather information about attitude, skills, knowledge, preferences, and factual information about the learners. The questions can either be open-ended or they can be closed questions. They can be developed and administered by the teacher before, during, or after the learning process. Key to note, for effective use of assessment questionnaires, 1, you ought to ensure that the assessment relates to the learning outcomes. Select the right type of questions, either true or false or the multiple choice. Keep the questions simple, clear, and concise. Write plausible, incorrect answers. Provide the learners with useful feedback. Use scenario-based questions where possible that will make learners to apply what they've learned to the realistic situations. So with a sample questionnaire, as always, we always start with the administrative information about the learner's name, the school, the learning area, the strand, the substrand, the learning area. Then we've got, so with a sample questionnaire. So the learner is supposed to tick either yes or no for the question. For instance, can the following methods be used to charge a body? So there's A and B. For instance, B is saying induction. So the learner is supposed to say yes or no. And then in question number 2, if your answer in 1B is yes, demonstrate how it's carried out. So question number 2 is a build-up of question number 1. If you look at question number 4, as an example here, they are supposed to tick true or false. So if you look at question number 4, they are supposed to say, static electricity cannot kill a human being. Is it true? Is it false? So see, within the answering of these questions, the teacher will be able now to find out whether the learners really have mastered the expected learning outcome. The 5th is the projects. Now, a project is a set of activities implemented within a given time frame. And even as we look at this project, I remember when CBC started, do you remember learners? I think now the current, I can't remember exactly with precision, but do you remember there's a time our learners were told to go and clean the nearby markets? And the exercise became a whole nationwide attention project. And because people really didn't understand that project work is one of the most effective assessment tool. But now, as we shall look at how the project should be designed and what should be put in place, we need to understand and agree that the project is a very useful assessment tool. So a project is a set of activities that are implemented within a given time frame. And then it gives an opportunity for learners to apply acquired knowledge and skills to a real life situation. A project can be assessed using observation schedules, rating scales, checklists, journals, and portfolios. It should have a clearly stated purpose and set of objectives for it to be successful. Something else key to note is that so as we were saying, is that we need to be very keen on the assessment tool that you're going to put in place. Reason being, the assessment tool that you're going to select or you're going to use when you will be carrying out your teaching process should be very well thought of. So in the projects, we've said that it can be used, it can be assessed using observation schedules. We've looked at them before. The rating scales, the checklist, the journals, and the portfolios. Projects can be used for learning, for problem solving, or even for income generation. So we have a sample. As usual, on top, you ought to have the administrative information about the learner's name, the school, the subject, the strand, the specific learning outcomes, and then the activity ought to be well spelled out. An example, here, the strand, the subject is computer science, and the strand is foundation of computer science. The substrand is the CPU, the central processing unit. And the SLO is use computers with different types of processors to perform tasks. Which is the activity? They are supposed to use the computer to type the document given using appropriate processor and submit the work after 1 week. And you can see typing a Word document this is a sample of the project. You see the typing of the Word document. So as you give out the project, then at the end of the day, we are supposed to have the time limit for the submission of the work. Now, these assessment tools, they are quite a number. So for today, we're going to learn those ones. Then in the next recording, I'm going to take you through the next assessment tool, which is the journal. I've been your fellow teacher, Mwini Masharubu. Will keep on talking. You can reach out to me in case you'll have any question, any additional information, or a suggestion. Goodbye for now. Let's continue embracing CBC. CBC is here to stay. Goodbye.